The Spider-Man films in the Marvel Cinematic Universe all have a lot of naysayers. They have a lot of fans as well, but they do have a sizable crowd of detractors. And yes, some of this is mindless hate, but some isn't. There are fair criticisms levied at the franchise, like the way we've never got a proper look at Uncle Ben, and the moral and psychological impetus which led to Peter donning the red and blue. Or the way that suckling on the gilded teat of Daddy Stark complicates the class politics of the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. But with the announcement of the animated project Spider-Man Freshman Year at Disney Plus Day, the franchise has, I think, carved out the perfect space to address some of these genuine criticisms. This seems to be a limited series, set a lot closer in time to the Spider-Bite and the start of Spidey's costumed antics, and I think we can assume we'll see something of the Wallcrawler's origins in the course of this project. The MCU didn't bother with this in live action, and honestly, that's understandable, given they wanted to slot him into Civil War, and that the character was coming fresh from two different film series, both of which lingered heavily on his origins. Just dropping this character straight into Civil War worked fine. What's a little more confusing is the way his subsequent appearances have seemed scared to even get close to mentioning or showing any of these origins. We don't even see any direct reference to Ben until What If, and that's, technically not even our Spidey. So, it would have been understandable if the MCU had relegated these questions of origins and motivations to be maybe auxiliary concerns, but it's weird that they haven't even been this so far. The result is almost an outline of a character, doing all these things, going to all these places, existing in this world, all while we have to interpret and process this without the crucial context of where it's all coming from, why he's doing any of these things. So, not unlike the CGI replacement models these films use for Spidey when he's suited up, it's almost as if we've been watching a Spider-Man who exists in a sort of uncanny valley. He's almost a full character. We get nearly complete character arcs from him, but to a degree they're all missing their starts. So, it can never feel quite real. This is where Freshman Year comes in, because it looks like this is set to give us this missing context. And sure, it's not a full-blown, genuine, live-action entry, but at least the birth of this character and the things which drive him to put on the mask and risk his life will be somewhat present in this universe. And I think it's fair to assume that this is more or less what we'll get. We shouldn't get ahead of ourselves, of course, but to be honest, I don't think I'm assuming anything that shouldn't be assumed, even given the limited information we're working with. And there is another minor criticism of the MCU's handling of Spidey that this series will hopefully go some way in remedying, one that I myself have tentatively voiced in the past. This is the team-up problem, the way we've only seen this hero in the presence or under the wing of other big successful Marvel heroes, working for the Accord side in Civil War, with Iron Man, Fury, and now Doctor Strange in his own quote solo films. And of course fighting with an army of Avengers and their allies during Infinity War and Endgame. Look, previous versions of Spider-Man in the comic books and on the small screen are full of team-ups. I know that, and these are always some of the most fun Spider-Man stories, full stop. But they generally come after he's already sort of figured himself out alone, and knows what he is and who he is outside of these shared universe connections. Like, classic Spider-Man didn't even join the Avengers properly for decades. And look, the ship has sailed on MCU Spider-Man operating in a similar way, I know that, but a standalone series showing this character's beginnings, back before he got in with Iron Man and started getting weepy phone calls from Nick Fury, that's a nice middle ground to have. And I'm excited to see this character begin his journey, and spend his formative few months with nothing and no one but a radioactive spider-bite and the homemade costume on his back. Now, the main negative which stands out to me is the timing, because especially given that the future of this Spider-Man isn't certain, it feels a bit weird to slot this crucial part, this missing start, in after Holland's trilogy is all wrapped up. We could have done with this really in between the first two films, or if not then, at least before No Way Home. But I guess given the corporate politics and the content roadmap of Marvel Studios, this probably wasn't possible. I just hope that unlike What If, Tom Holland is back in the role for this, because while, as I suggested above, there are some genuine reasons to criticise the MCU Spider-Man franchise, I think most of you would agree that his lead performance isn't one of them. And also because, contrary to some of the comments Holland has made in the past, he's recently been seeming kinda eager to leave the role behind. Which I think would be a real shame. So if we don't end up getting that College Holland Spider-Man trilogy, I'd like to at least get one more starring turn out of him post No Way Home, in which his Spider-Man can show us that final part of his story, which just so happens to be its beginning. Is it a shame that we'll probably never get to see these crucial parts of Peter's story and character in live action? Sure. But will this animated addendum go far in making up for this, reframing the character and his journey, especially given the formal constraints imposed upon this Spider-Man by the nature of the MCU-Sony collaboration? I think so. But what do you think? Let me know below. This was just a quick one, and it's mostly speculation at this point, so it could go either way, who knows. But I hope this was enjoyable to watch, and, maybe I made a good point or two, who's to say? So yeah, in conclusion, like the video or I will hate you forever. Peace.